At 7:14 this morning, the woman who told me I'd never amount to anything walked through the lobby of the company I built from nothing and asked the receptionist if the CEO was available for a meeting. She gave her name as Claudia Avonhart. My receptionist, who has no idea who Claudia Avonhart is to me, checked the schedule, saw that my morning was blocked for the Orland Industries acquisition review, and told her the CEO was unavailable until further notice. Claudia said she'd wait. She's been sitting in the lobby for 3 hours. I know this because the security feed is on my second monitor, and every 15 minutes I glance at it the way you'd glance at a wound you know is there but aren't ready to touch. In about 9 hours, at 7 o'clock tonight, I'm signing the largest acquisition contract in this company's history, a deal that will triple our revenue base, expand operations into 3 new territories, and formally establish Ashford Logistics as a major player in the Continental Trade Network. The signing happens in the executive boardroom. 12 people will be in the room: lawyers, board members, the Orland family's representatives. Everything I've worked for in the last 6 years comes down to tonight. And the woman in my lobby is the reason I started working in the first place. Not because she inspired me, because she broke something inside me so completely that the only way to survive was to build. But I'll get to that. Right now, I need to tell you about what's happening today, because today is not going as planned, and Claudia's arrival is only the first problem. 8 a.m., board prep meeting. My CFO, Davin, walked in with the Orland contract binder and a look on his face that I've learned to associate with bad news delivered calmly. The Orland family added a clause overnight, he said. Personal guarantee provision. They want you, not the company, you personally, to guarantee the integration loan. If the acquisition underperforms in the first 18 months, you're liable. Personally, your assets, your equity, everything. I stared at him. That wasn't in the draft. It is now. Their counsel sent the revised terms at 6 this morning. We have until signing to accept or reject. If we reject, they walk. A personal guarantee on a deal this size would mean that if anything went wrong, market downturn, integration delays, supply chain disruption, I would lose not just the company but everything I own. The apartment, the savings, the equity stake that represents 6 years of 18-hour days. Why the change? I asked. Davin hesitated. Their senior representative made the request. Name on the revision is Aldrich Avonhart. Avonhart, Claudia's older brother, the one who runs the family's financial arm, the one who sat across from me at a dinner table 6 years ago and told me, to my face, that I was a temporary distraction his sister would outgrow. I looked at the security feed. Claudia was still in the lobby, legs crossed, scrolling her phone. Patient. Like someone who knows exactly how long they're willing to wait because they've calculated the value of the outcome. This is the Avonhart family. They don't show up separately by coincidence. On 9:30 a.m., I took a call from my lawyer, Priya. The personal guarantee clause is aggressive but not unusual for acquisitions of this scale, she said. What's unusual is the timing. Adding it 12 hours before signing is a pressure tactic. They want you off balance. Why? Because someone told them you'd sign anyway. Someone who knows your psychology well enough to know that you'd rather risk everything than walk away from a deal this close to completion. Someone who knows my psychology. Someone who watched me build this company from a single delivery truck and a rented desk. Someone who sat through our entire relationship cataloging my insecurities, my ambitions, and the specific shape of my pride. I looked at the lobby feed again. Claudia was talking to my receptionist, smiling. At the same smile she used on waiters and shop clerks and anyone she needed something from. A performance of warmth so polished it felt real until you learned to look for the machinery underneath. Let me tell you about Claudia. Not the full history, just the parts that explain why she's in my lobby and why her brother is trying to shackle me to a personal guarantee that could destroy everything. I met Claudia Avonhart when I was 22. I was working as a logistics coordinator for a shipping company in the capital. Entry-level position, modest salary, no connections. She was the youngest daughter of the Avonhart Group, one of the wealthiest commercial families in the region. We met at a charity function I was attending as a +1 for a colleague. She approached me. She was interested in me. Well, I was flattered beyond my ability to think clearly. We dated for 2 years. During that time, I learned 3 things about Claudia Avonhart. First, she was extraordinarily intelligent. She understood markets, leverage, and human behavior with a precision that most people reserve for mathematics. She could read a room in 30 seconds and know exactly what everyone wanted, feared, and would settle for. Second, she measured people by their utility. Not openly. She was too smart for that. But over time, the pattern became clear. The friends she kept were the ones who offered access. The events she attended were the ones that offered visibility. The man she dated, me, offered something too, though it took me 2 years to understand what it was. Third, she needed someone to be beneath her, not in a cruel way, in a structural way. While Claudia's identity was built on being the most impressive person in any room, and that required a calibrated distance between herself and the people around her. She didn't want an equal, she wanted an audience. And for 2 years, I performed that role without realizing I was cast in it. The breaking point came on a specific evening. I'd been promoted, a small step, assistant logistics manager, and I made the mistake of mentioning it at a dinner with her family. Her father nodded politely. Her mother said, "Congratulations." Her brother Aldrich looked at me across the table and said, "That's a nice start. What's the ceiling on a career like that? 35, 40,000? Claudia didn't correct him. She smiled and changed the subject. Later that night in her apartment, I brought it up. He was dismissive, I said, in front of everyone. "Well, Aldrich is direct. You're being sensitive." "I'm being accurate. He implied my career has a ceiling." She turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before, or rather, an expression I'd never been willing to see before. It was bare, unperformed, the real thing underneath 2 years of polished warmth. "Lucian, he's right. There is a ceiling. You work in logistics. You make 40,000 a year. You don't have a family name, you don't have capital, and you don't have the kind of ambition that changes those things. I've been patient because I thought you'd grow into something more, but I'm starting to wonder if this is just who you are." I didn't say anything for a long time. Then I said, "Who I am. Someone who's comfortable being small, and I can't be with someone who's comfortable being small, because it makes me smaller by association." I left her apartment. She didn't follow me. She didn't call. The next morning, she sent a message that said, "I think we both know this isn't working. I wish you well. Clean, composed, no tears, like closing a file on a project that hadn't performed." That was 6 years ago. What happened after is a compressed version of a longer story, and I'll give you only the parts that matter to today. I quit the shipping company. I took my savings, small, enough for 1 truck and first month's rent on a warehouse, and started a delivery service. Independent, local. I drove the truck myself for the first 8 months. I slept in the warehouse office because I couldn't afford the truck payment and rent at the same time. Year 1, 1 truck, 1 client, 1 man sleeping on a cot. Year 2, 3 trucks. 12 clients, a small office with actual furniture. Year 3. I hired Davin. He was a finance graduate who couldn't find a corporate position and was willing to work for equity instead of salary. He's worth more than anyone in this company now, and he knows it, and I make sure the compensation reflects it. Year 4. Ashford Logistics secured its first major contract, a supply chain management deal with a regional manufacturing consortium. Revenue crossed 7 figures. Year 5, we expanded to 3 offices. I stopped driving. I started directing. Year 6, the Orland Industries acquisition was proposed, and I found myself sitting in a boardroom with 12 people discussing a deal that would make Ashford Logistics a name that even the Avenhart family couldn't dismiss. I didn't build this company to prove Claudia wrong. That's the story people want to hear, but it's not the truth. I built it because the night she told me I was comfortable being small, something inside me accepted the challenge. Not to impress her, but to test whether she was right. And the answer, year by year, truck by truck, client by client, was no. She was not right. I was not small, I was just in a room where the only scale of measurement was someone else's wealth. Now, back to today. 11 a.m. My assistant buzzed. "Ms. Avenhart is still in the lobby. She's asking again. She says it's personal." I told my assistant to bring her up. She walked into my office looking exactly the way I remembered. Immaculate, poised, dressed in the kind of understated luxury that signals wealth to people who know what to look for and appears modest to everyone else. She scanned the room the way she scanned every room, assessing the furniture, the view, the size, the quality, calculating what it represented. "Lucian." She said my name the way she always had, like she was tasting it. "This is impressive." "Sit down, Claudia." She sat. She crossed her legs. She folded her hands. Every movement precise, rehearsed, not nervous, prepared. "I'll be direct. she said. I know about the Orland acquisition. Aldrich handles their financial advisory. I know the deal closes tonight, and I know he added a personal guarantee clause this morning. Did you come here to tell me about your brother's negotiation tactics? I came here because the clause isn't a negotiation tactic. It's leverage. Leverage for what? She paused. The composure held, but something underneath it shifted. A crack in the performance. Was not quite guilt, closer to the discomfort of someone who is about to do something they know is distasteful, but have decided is necessary. The Evanhart Group is in trouble, Lucian. Not publicly, our image is intact. But internally, Aldrich's investments in the eastern trade routes have collapsed. The family is leveraged beyond what the board knows. They need a lifeline, and they need it quietly. And the personal guarantee? If you sign it, the Orland deal goes through with Evanhart Financial Advisory attached. Aldrich takes a percentage. The fee alone covers the family's short-term debt. If the acquisition underperforms, you absorb the loss. The Evanharts walk away clean. I let that settle. Then I said, "And your role in this?" Another pause. Longer. Aldrich asked me to come. And he said I was the one person who could convince you to sign without reading the clause too carefully. Because you know my psychology. Because he thinks I still have influence over you. She looked at me. Directly. Do I? That was the moment. Right there. Not a dramatic confrontation. Not a villain speech. Just a woman sitting in a chair asking me a real question, and the answer determining what happened to everything I'd built. I looked at her. I looked at the security feed, now showing an empty lobby. I looked at the contract binder on my desk with the personal guarantee clause flagged in red. Why are you telling me this? I said. If Aldrich wanted you to convince me to sign, why are you showing me the machinery instead? She didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was different, quieter. I'm stripped of the usual polish. Because the last time I sat across from you and was honest about what I saw, I told you that you were small, and I was wrong. I've known I was wrong for about 4 years, and telling you the truth now, even when it costs my family, is the only way I know to prove that I understand what I lost. 12:30 p.m. Claudia left. I sat alone in my office for 45 minutes. At 1:15, Davin came in. We have 6 hours. What are we doing about the guarantee? Call Priya. Tell her to draft a counter-proposal. We accept the Orland acquisition at the original terms. No personal guarantee. If they refuse, we walk. Davin stared at me. If we walk, we lose the deal. 18 months of negotiation. The board will survive. But I didn't build this company to hand the keys to someone who's trying to use me as a financial shield for his family's bad investments. You're sure? I'm sure. 2 p.m. Priya submitted the counter-proposal to Orland's legal team. The response came back in 40 minutes. The Evanhart Group's advisory position is non-negotiable. The personal guarantee stands. So Aldrich had made himself indispensable to the Orland side. Clever. He'd embedded his family's interests so deeply into the deal structure that removing them meant collapsing the whole thing. 3 p.m. I called a contact in the Orland family's secondary leadership, a woman named Greta Orland, the founder's granddaughter, who managed the family's agricultural division and had been skeptical of the advisory arrangement from the beginning. Greta, I need to ask you something directly. Was the Evanhart advisory role the Orland family's idea, or was it proposed to you? Silence. Then, Aldrich Evanhart approached us 8 months ago. He said his family's network would smooth the regulatory process. We accepted because the name carries weight. And the personal guarantee? That was his condition for continuing the advisory. He told us it was standard. It's not standard, Greta. It's a mechanism to transfer risk from his family to me. If the deal underperforms, I absorb the loss, and the Evanhart Group collects its advisory fee regardless. Longer silence. I'll need to bring this to the family board. You have 4 hours. 4 p.m. Greta called back. The Orland family board had reviewed the arrangement. They were not pleased. Aldrich's advisory role was being suspended pending internal review. The personal guarantee clause was removed. The original acquisition terms were restored. The deal was alive. Clean. Mine. 4:30 p.m. Aldrich Evanhart called my office directly. My assistant patched him through. You spoke to Greta Orland, he said. His voice was controlled but thin, the sound of someone whose architecture is collapsing in real time, and I did. You realize what you've done. My family's advisory position. Your family's advisory position was a vehicle for self-dealing, Aldrich. You embedded yourself in a deal to extract fees you needed to cover losses you hid from your own board. That's not advisory. That's parasitism. You don't understand the complexities. I understand logistics, supply chains, risk assessment, and contracts. And I understand them because I spent 6 years learning them from the ground up, starting with one truck, while your family managed its wealth from inherited desks. You told me once that my career had a ceiling. You were right. It did. And I went through it. He hung up. I set the phone down and realized my hands were shaking, not from fear. From the specific concentrated energy of a man who has been carrying something heavy for 6 years and has just set it down in exactly the right place. 5 p.m. 2 hours before signing. I sat in my office and let the quiet settle. My phone buzzed. A message from Claudia. Aldrich knows what happened. He's furious. I don't regret what I told you. I read it twice. Then I typed back. Thank you for being honest. I mean that. A pause. Then, Lucian, I know this doesn't fix anything. But I want you to know, when I said you were small, I wasn't describing you. I was describing the limit of what I could see. That limit was mine, not yours. I stared at the message for a long time. It was, by a considerable margin, the most self-aware thing Claudia Avonhart had ever said to me. And it arrived 6 years too late to change anything, but just in time to close something that had been open inside me since the night she said it. I didn't respond. Not because I was punishing her, because the response I would have given, I forgive you, wasn't quite true. And I'd spent 6 years learning the difference between what sounds right and what is right. I put the phone in my desk drawer. 6:45 p.m. The boardroom. 12 chairs. Contract on the table. Lawyers, board members, Greta Orland, and her father's representative. Us Davin in the corner, checking figures one last time. The room smelled like wood polish and coffee and the particular electricity of something about to become permanent. Greta shook my hand. Clean terms, no advisory parasites, shall we? I sat down. I picked up the pen. For 1 second, just one, I thought about the warehouse, the cot, the single truck with a lease payment I almost couldn't make, the nights I spent calculating fuel costs by hand because I couldn't afford accounting software, the morning I made my first delivery and the client signed the receipt and said, "Thanks, Ashford Logistics." And it was the first time anyone had said the name out loud, and it sounded real. I thought about Claudia telling me I was small. I thought about Aldrich asking what my ceiling was. I thought about my mother, who I haven't mentioned yet. Yet because some things are private, calling me on the phone during year 1 and saying, Lucian, are you eating? And me lying and saying yes because I'd skipped 2 meals to cover a tire replacement. I thought about all of it. And then I signed. The room applauded. Davin exhaled like a man who'd been holding his breath for 18 months. Greta Orland smiled. Not a performed smile, a real one. I shook hands. I accepted congratulations. I stayed for 30 minutes. Then I left the boardroom, walked past the lobby where Claudia had sat for 3 hours this morning, took the elevator to the ground floor, and stepped outside into the evening air. The city was doing what cities do at 7 o'clock, transitioning from work to life, offices emptying, restaurants filling, the sky turning from gray to amber. And I stood on the sidewalk in front of the building that had my company's name on it, and I breathed. My phone buzzed. I didn't check it. I walked to a noodle shop 3 blocks away, the same one I'd eaten at during year 1 when I couldn't afford anything else on the menu except the plain broth, and it was the best meal I'd had all week. I sat at the counter. I ordered the broth. The owner, an old man who'd been running the shop since before I arrived in this part of the city, set the bowl in front of me and said, "You look different tonight." Good different or bad different? Full different. Like a man who finally ate enough. I laughed. I ate the broth. It tasted exactly the same as it had 6 years ago. Simple, hot, honest. The kind of thing that doesn't pretend to be more than it is. She, Claudia Avonhart, came to my building today looking for the man she left behind. She found a company instead. She found a door she couldn't walk through with a smile and a family name. She found the answer to a question she asked 6 years ago. Is this just who you are? And the answer, written in glass and steel and a signed contract and a bowl of plain broth, was no. This is who I became. After you. Because of you. In spite of you. She won't crawl back. That's not how Claudia works. She doesn't crawl. She recalculates. She'll adjust. She'll find another opportunity, another network, another room to read in 30 seconds. She's brilliant that way. She'll survive, but she won't sit across from me again. Not because I'm angry. Because the chair across from me is occupied now. Not by a person, but by the version of myself that I built in the years she wasn't watching. And there isn't room for someone who only sees value when it's already been proven. The broth is gone. The bowl is empty. The city is dark and lit and moving. I pay. I leave a tip that's larger than the meal. The old man nods. I walk home through streets I've walked 1,000 times, past the warehouse where I slept on a cot, past the lot where I parked the first truck, past the office where Davin and I spent 100 nights building projections on a whiteboard with markers that were always running out of ink. It's all still here. Every piece of it. The foundation hasn't moved. It doesn't need to. Tomorrow there will be press releases, board announcements, integration meetings. Us and the 1,000 small decisions that turn a signed contract into a functioning operation. But tonight, there is just a man walking home in a city that once felt too large for him, wearing a suit he bought with money he earned, carrying nothing, no contract, no phone, no anger, no need to prove anything to anyone, and understanding, finally and completely, that the opposite of being called worthless isn't being called valuable. It's not needing to be called anything at all.